Sagon folks, and welcome back. My name is Sydney Hill, and this is NightOwl. Boy, it's been a weird couple of weeks, if I'm being honest. Things have been feeling fractured, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Things feeling like they're all over the place, you know. Time, dates, events, just a mess. And at the risk of sounding paranoid, it feels a little like attention is being directed this way. And I know that what we're doing is pretty public, and it's a pirate station, sure, but it's not by any means private. But this doesn't feel like that. It feels like eyes from beyond the human perspective. I don't know how much sense that makes, but that's the best I could do to describe it. That's sort of the nature of this show, right? It's your stories that are things that are unusual and scary and strange, sometimes unbelievable, so unbelievable that they have to be true, you know, they might push the bounds of what we're willing to believe here in this realm of possibilities. That's the show, that's our connection, that's why we're here, right? To feel less alone with these experiences that would otherwise have us feeling isolated. When I left my previous job, that's what I was fighting for. Keeping this community open and genuine and connected. I was getting a lot of pushback for some of the stories that were coming in, some of the truths that were being told. You know, they were putting a lot of pressure on me to amend them, change details, remove things. And I don't roll like that. I've never worked like that. I don't do that. Integrity is so important to me. That's not how I do things. At the same time that I was feeling all of this pressure, I was also being invited to join this club. Now, initiation into this club would provide access to information about some of the things that we discuss here, the mysteries, you know. Not full explanations or whole answers, but just more information on the hows, the whats, the whys. And I thought it would just be like research funding or more editors or, you know, like a team to be able to deep dive and dig into the spookier side of things. More hands, right? Acceptance into this club would mean new experiences, new air to breathe. But I don't need to tell you that nothing in this world is free. Nothing. The price to join this club, to have this new life, was steep, in short. When they told me what it would cost, what kind of participation would be required to have this new freedom, these answers that I've always wanted, it was an immediate no for me. Absolutely not. My ancestors, my spirits, my connection to the land, my connection to Creator, my morals, basically my soul. And I'm just not willing to give up those pieces of myself, my humanity. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it to my ancestors, to the spirits that walk with me. Honestly, just the suggestion makes me physically ill. So I declined. No, thank you. That's not for me. No. As you might expect, they did not take that well, and within a week, I was unceremoniously let go. Creative differences and all that, which we've talked about before. Whatever they said was the reason. Now, at this time, that's as forthcoming as I can be to keep us all safe to some degree. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, though, that I think that as crazy crazy as it sounds, I think that and the movement that I've been feeling that I discussed in a previous episode are related. And I can't tell you how or why. It's just a gut feeling that I can't shake. And that's all I've got as far as that goes. As far as developments with that go, I'll keep you posted as best as I can, but that's all I've got for now that I think is somewhat safe to share with you, for you and for me. So, heavy stuff aside, let's jump into our story for tonight. The story comes from a listener named Kat. Hi Sydney, my name is Kat and I'm so excited to be writing. My friend Cam introduced me to your show and I've been obsessed ever since. We met when we started at the same company about a year ago. Nothing bonds two people better than bad training and even worse management, if you know what I mean. I do. I think a lot of us know exactly what you mean. Let's see. Anyway, we were having a little chat during lunch in the office the other day and the subject landed on imaginary friends. It was only after seeing her reaction to some of my stories about my childhood friend Trevor that I realized maybe it wasn't as similar to everyone else's stories as I thought. With some light encouragement from her, I thought I'd share it with you and all your lovely listeners. Thank you. Maybe someone else can relate. Maybe someone else had a Trevor of their own. When I was little, we moved around a lot. My dad was away for work most of the time, and my mom worked full-time as well, so I was one of those latchkey kids. I was mostly well-behaved, so my parents didn't worry so much about me. But since we moved around so much, I found myself alone a lot. Enter Trevor. The way that Trevor came into my life was weird enough, let alone the strange things that followed for that chunk of my childhood. It was late one night, maybe 2 or 3 a.m. My dad had just gotten home from a job and he was fighting with my mom. I remember just laying there listening to them shout, but unable to make out their words, just loud voices traveling in from the crack at the bottom of the door. I started to drift off to sleep in the midst of their muffled argument when a bright light flashed. I could see it through my eyelids, immediately prompting me to open them up as fast as I could. I shot out of bed and looked around, slightly disoriented from my near sleeping state. At first, I didn't see anything. The noise of my mom and dad arguing fell into the background as I carefully surveyed the surrounding area. Every stuffed animal, every toy, every piece of furniture seemed to be in place, except now I noticed the window. It was open, and it definitely wasn't open before. My mom was adamant about keeping things locked and safe. Our neighborhood was not the safest in town. I got up quickly to shut it before I could get in trouble for it. As I carefully closed it, the light flashed again, and this time it was behind me. I spun around quickly, not thinking fast enough to even be afraid, and that's when I saw Trevor for the first time. He was standing silently in the darkest corner of my room. He was looking at me expressionless and still. I replied in kind, trying to figure out how he climbed up into my room, which was basically the attic. I took a step in his direction and the floor creaked. My eyes darted towards the door, afraid my parents would hear me out of bed. His eyes never left me, though. From what I could see, with only the moonlight coming from the window, his eyes were large and dark. Brown? Black? I couldn't tell. But they seemed bigger than mine, but still normal looking in shape. They were deep, though, holding my gaze now. I felt like I could look away, but I didn't want to. Or maybe he didn't want me to. He had shaggy, sandy blonde hair, milky-looking skin, and he was small. I think he was about my height, which was probably somewhere around 3.5 feet at that age. He was wearing an old, ratty white t-shirt and blue overall shorts and no shoes. His feet were covered in dirt, and his knees were all scraped up something awful. But back in those days, we always had scrapes and bruises, so it wasn't that weird. I figured maybe he hurt them climbing up somehow. I finally got the guts to ask him, real quietly, who he was. His little eyebrows quirked up and he smirked at me. And then I heard him speak, but his lips never moved. His mouth never opened. I heard him, in my head, say, Trevor. But his voice sounded older than he looked, something that didn't occur to me until much, much later. I smiled at him and told him my name was Catherine, but he could call me Kat. And if he called me Kathy, we couldn't be friends. That's adorable. He giggled at that, but again, not out loud. He asked me if I wanted to be friends, and I told him only if he told me how he made that flash of light appear. He thought about it for a minute, and then pulled one of his hands out of his pockets. At first, I couldn't tell what he was holding until he clicked it, and I realized it was a flashlight. We both laughed together, him inside my head and me out loud, at which point my mother yelled up to me that I'd better be laughing in my sleep. I hopped quickly back into my bed, and Trevor followed, perching at the end, sitting cross-legged and facing me. He handed me the flashlight, and that's when I noticed he had 4 fingers on his right hand and 3 on his left. His fingers were longer than mine, and his hands were much bigger. He told me he would go for now so I wouldn't get in trouble. He crossed the room and stood next to the window and told me if I ever wanted him to come back, all I had to do was flash the flashlight out my window, spelling his name in Morse code. I nodded, thinking about learning whatever Morse code was. Before I could respond, I heard the floorboards outside my room creak, and I flung myself back down in bed and shut my eyes really quickly. I laid down for a few minutes until I knew no one was coming, and then I looked back out to the window, remembering my new friend. But when I looked back, he was gone, but the window was open again. I shot out of bed as quietly as I could and looked out the window. How did he have enough time to climb out the window, down the house, and far enough away that I couldn't see him going down the street? And how did he do it without making any noise? I let the questions and curiosity swirl around in my head until I fell asleep. But that was just the beginning. The next day, I found a book about World War II in my dad's office at the house, and it had a chapter on Morse code. It also had a chapter on the state of the world at that time. I couldn't read a lot of it, but there were pictures. The pictures were of impoverished people on the street, sort of slice of life style photos. There were a few with kids like me in them. I noticed a lot of kids were dressed kind of like Trevor, so in my mind I just assumed he was one of them, maybe not imaginary at all. This conclusion was all but confirmed after his first interaction with my other imaginary friend, Angela. She was a kid like me. She had black hair and brown skin and freckles across her nose. She had a really bright smile and really kind eyes, and she always had a story to cheer me up when I was having a bad day or my parents were fighting. She always had a glow about her. Now when I look back, I think she was probably an angel or something. If you believe in angels, I mean. If that were the case, it would make sense that Trevor didn't like Angela. And if I'm honest, the feeling was mutual. She told me to be careful with him and that she didn't think it was a good idea to keep bringing him around. But I was a kid and he would always show up with cool stuff to share. After they met for the first time and Angela had gone for the night, I was alone with Trevor. He'd come again to the window. I'd left the window open after using the flashlight, but this time was different. He showed up, but he wasn't a person. He flew in and landed on the windowsill as an owl, a white barn owl with big black eyes. But something about it wasn't right, and I couldn't figure it out. Whatever it was made him just truly terrifying to look at. I remember stumbling back and falling over a skate I'd left on my floor. I didn't like that at all. There was something so unsettling about him showing up like that. Of course, I'd had imaginary friends that were not human before, but this was something different, a different feeling, a different aura. He felt like something and not someone. I yelled at him and told him he had to leave because I was so scared. The owl stood up straight, hearing the shrill terror in my voice, and then there was a flash of light. I had to cover my eyes, it was so bright. When the light was gone, I looked back to the window, and there was Trevor, back to normal. I told him to never come back like that again because it was too scary and I didn't like it. And he just laughed at me. The sound itself made my blood run cold. He shrugged at me and told me he wouldn't, but this would turn out to be an empty promise. We played for a little bit, very quietly because I was supposed to be asleep. After a while, he brought up Angela. Before I could tell him more about her, he said flat out that he didn't like her. I was taken aback by this because Angela was my best friend. She took care of me and made sure I was safe. She was my mother when my mother was too busy. But the scowl on his face told me not to argue. I wouldn't ever be able to put into words what exactly it was about the way he showed up or interacted with me that night that was so absolutely frightening. But it stuck with me all these years. After that, he refused to be in the same room as Angela, ever. If I called him with the flashlight but Angela was there, he just wouldn't show up. The first time I tried this, he came later that night. Angela had gone wherever she usually went, and I was laying in bed watching the stars from my nightlight on my ceiling. Then, out of nowhere, a flash of light, and there he was by the open window. I didn't call him, he just appeared, and the look on his face? Absolutely horrifying. He was furious. I sat up quickly when I saw him and scrambled to the corner of my bed in an attempt to get as far away from him as possible. The energy in the room changed and the temperature felt like it dropped significantly. Suddenly, I was freezing, but I barely noticed because all I could focus on was him. His stance was aggressive. His hands were balled into fists at the end of his stiff arms, and he was leaned toward me like a snake that would strike at any moment. His brow was furrowed, and his eyes were filled with a rage I had never seen at such a tender age, and he was baring his teeth at me. Drool slowly dripped from his lips as I took a longer look at his mouth. His teeth were wrong. His usual teeth were gone, and now they looked sharp, and there were too many of them. His breathing was rapid, like he was holding himself back on nothing but willpower, and willpower alone. It felt like we just stared at each other forever, until I asked him with shaky resolve, "What's wrong?" He took a deep breath and then started to yell and pace. I was praying that he wouldn't come any closer to the bed. I wasn't sure what he would do if he decided to get physical, if he could get physical. His pacing only heightening my anxiety. He was screaming about me trying to call him down while Angela was there, that he already told me never to do that and that he hated her. He was flailing his arms around and swearing at me. I hadn't even heard my parents use some of the words he was using. I tried to apologize, to tell him I forgot that he told me not to do that, but he wouldn't hear it. He just kept going on and on until finally it seemed like he'd worn himself out. He stopped near the window, and that's when he made the threat that would ensure I never forgot about his rule ever again. He turned to me slowly, a sickening grin on his face, showing again his innumerable sharp teeth. His eyes were jet black and seemed bigger and more threatening than they ever had before. In a low, deep voice, straight into my mind, he warned me, "If you ever do that again, I'll make sure you live to regret it. By the time I'm finished, you'll be begging for your mom and dad. Do you understand me?" He basically spat the last part at me. All I could do in my absolute terror was nod. He nodded back before the bright flash of light appeared, and he was gone. I ran over and shut the window, locking it as quickly as possible. After that, he came whenever he felt like it. He didn't always come as Trevor either. He came as an owl whenever he thought I was getting too comfortable. He would laugh at my terror every single time. He came as a demon, a snake. One time he came as Angela. But he had giant horns and he had covered himself in blood. After the night of the threat, I'd pretty much lost any control I had of the situation. He didn't wait for me to call him with the flashlight. Hell, he ignored it altogether. He always found a way in and out of the window too, even if it was locked. Angela did the best she could trying to help me, but she told me she was limited in a way. She tried to explain it, but at that age, it was too much for me to understand. We tried salt on the sill, we tried herbs, we tried holy water, we read verses from the Bible, we prayed. Nothing seemed to keep him out. All the while, every time he turned up, he looked scarier and scarier, more disheveled and unhinged. It got to a point where Angela would stay around as long as she could because he avoided coming around when she was there. But then that stopped working too, almost like he wasn't afraid of her anymore. The last time I remember seeing him was the night before we moved out of that house, out of that state. It was the middle of the night and Angela had gone and I was all alone. The flash of light came and there he was. Tonight he had come as the owl, only he was enormous. He towered over the end of my bed, leaning in toward me. I flung the covers over my head and covered my eyes. His laugh came loud and clear into my head. I slowly uncovered myself and sat up, scrunched into the corner of the bed, trying to get away from him. He told me he'd come to see me off, but that it was not a goodbye, that it would never be goodbye, and that I would never be without him again. He laughed, and he told me he'd see me around before another flash of light, and then he was gone. I didn't sleep through the night for at least a week after that. Trevor never came to visit me again, not like this, at least. Sometimes I feel like I see him, though, out of the corner of my eye or in the glimpse of a kid in a grocery store. If I think too much about it, it kind of freaks me out. Angela never left, by the way. She's still around. I don't see her anymore like I did when I was a kid, but it's more like I can feel her when I need her. She's helped me get through a lot. Hopefully this helps someone out there feel less alone. Thank you so much, Sydney. I can't wait to hear more stories from out in the darkness. Cat. Well, now and go a cat. Thank you for